Last week has been a pretty interesting one for TF2 fans, with Zesty Jesus releasing a video named "You Will Not Play" on the 14th of February, and then all of a sudden Valve releasing TF2's SDK on the 18th of February. What is even going on? Community focus has shifted mostly to the latter event, as it brings a lot of possibilities to the table, but also a few significant concerns. Now, by no means I know how the source engine operates, and I'm basing my knowledge here from the Valve Developer Wiki and the TF2 blog, but I'll try my best to explain what's the big deal with this update. What is this whole SDK that people are talking about? SDK, or Software Development Kit, is a set of software used by developers to create, well, software. Valve has one, it's called Source SDK 2013, based on the 2013 version of the Source engine, and it includes the source code for games like Half-Life, Portal, and now TF2. What does this mean? The way that TF2 was constructed in code is now publicly available for everyone to see, study, modify, and use in any way they wish, meaning that modding the game, creating fixes, optimizing it, and creating your own versions of it is much easier now. Titles like Open Fortress and TF2 Classic have been built around the leaked TF2 source code, so with it being available to public means that, for example, developers of these titles can finally work on a proper base of TF2 rather than older versions that were leaked in the past. On the 19th of February, MCOMS, the developer behind Master Config, released a TF2 mod called Team Comtress 2, with improvements to things like performance, networking, the backstab hit reg, a few weapon buffs, and more. This only shows that there are big things coming up for the TF2 community from the TF2 community, and all we have to do is wait. So that pretty much sums up what has transpired as of recent. Now, this video isn't really about this update as much as what can we expect from it, and what are some of my worries related to it. Centralization of the modding community. With this situation that we've got in our hands, a very interesting possibility arises, and that is creating a centralized modding community for TF2, akin to a community TF2 dev team. Now that we have the access to all of TF2's dev tools, a team composed of people who'd actually want to work on TF2 and work on its many issues compared to newer titles, mostly related to optimization, could be formed. Said team, outside of these little fixes, could form something alike the TF2 team that used to work at Valve. You see where I'm going with this? We could, hell, we can actually take TF2 into our own hands, or rather give it to the competent programmers who'd like to work on the game, and combat this constant neglect that we've been facing from Valve ever since 2017. Do you understand that we can make TF2 our own thing now? Do you understand that we can do things that we've been asking Valve to do for years? We finally have the means to create things like the Heavy update. Now, this is just wishful thinking, don't get me wrong, as creating such a team would entail a lot of problems. Like, who would lead and organize the team? Who would actually want to work on the team? How do we gauge who could work on the team? Given that TF2 mods must be free, who would want to work on the game for free? How can we create a singular modding-based community that would focus on specific goals? All of these rhetorical questions have been said in order to establish that this is just a wild dream of mine that I'd like to share with you, as I see a lot of opportunities if such project came to fruition. Time will tell. I'm not a big YouTuber. I don't keep ties with influential people in the community, but very cool ones, that's for sure. And it would be great to see capable and influential figures within the community coming together and seeing whether they could figure out if they could run the game instead of our abusive caretaker, aka Valve. Imagine if they let free-to-plays actually speak again. Like in-game. Just a little reminder. The dangers of centralization. Now, consider this a follow-up to what I've just discussed, aka if a centralized modding community were to be created. Since Valve specifically outlined that TF2 mods have to be free, technically we don't really have to worry about paywalls coming in and ruining the fun for people who would want to give mods a shot, right? Well, you know of TF2 Emporium, no? For those who may not be completely aware of the situation, TF2 Emporium is a group that brings together a lot of cosmetic creators and sort of exploits people who wish to get their hats in game. Long story short, if you want to get your cosmetics added to TF2, you have to have connections in the Emporium, or at least someone with good enough rep in the Emporium. For anyone interested, I'm leaving a link to a video by BigBoiGames explaining the Emporium situation in detail. So what's my main worry is the possibility of a centralized modding community somehow hiding their work behind a paywall. Now, I'm not talking about a fundraiser of some sorts which would help fund work on such a project, but rather said modding community commercializing their product based on TF2's SDK. All of this might just be a fluke and not an actual issue when shove comes to push, but imagine someone finds a loophole that would allow such mods to be hidden behind a paywall. What then? What do you do if said mod got popular enough for it to be used by a good chunk of the player base, and if you want to play it, you gotta pay up? Another concern of mine is that said centralized modding community could disallow smaller mod makers to launch their own mods, or mods that would try to compete with their product. By that I mean, if a specific TF2 mod became a go-to version to play, other ones simply would never reach the same heights when it comes to popularity. Is this Valve saying goodbye to TF2? When the 7th TF2 comic released, I had these feelings that this is it. Valve is finally wrapping things up, tying loose ends in the lore and saying goodbye to TF2 and its community. As the old saying goes, don't count your chickens before they hatch. We don't know what Valve has in store for TF2 right now, and making assumptions is pointless. Valve will do whatever they want to, no matter how much pressure we put on them. They will do as they wish, and focusing on what we can do with TF2's SDK should be our main priority. So, what do you think? What should be the main focus now that TF2 can be shaped in any way we see fit? To sum this up, there's a lot we can expect from this update, but what we do with it is entirely up to the community. I think it should be advised that we look out for any smartasses that would try to profit off of this, which is my main concern, and hopefully lead to a situation where people who know how to work in Source would want to work together for the benefit of the community as a whole. All we can do for now is wait, chill, and hope for the best. Thank you for hearing me out. Peace until next time.